Good afternoon. And so I'm back here again. So I'm going to be giving a short presentation about animal welfare advocacy approach to address development and environmental protection. So what is this about? This is talking about how do we address the United Nations on international policies and how we advocate for animal welfare in these fora. So I'm going to give a short presentation today with my wonderful colleague Ngoc from the Asia for Animals Coalition. I will give the first part and she'll present the second part, and then we'll answer your questions together. So simple introduction. These are the four things that we're going to talk about today. It's going to be the United Nations. It's a beast. What is it? Not obese, but a beast. What is our logic model? What do we think, how we get things through, and how do we build the evidence, and where is the evidence lying? How do we do that? And then we're going to encourage everybody to participate from your regions, your countries, engaging with your national representatives so they can bring that knowledge to the United Nations. So we'll start. Animal welfare. It is not a known concept in the United Nations. They don't know about it. They don't care about it. It's not important to them because they're focused on people. So how do we link these wonderful things about animals that we know about to what people need? Because people actually need the same things. There we go. Is it about conservation? Which is what they do know about. So we sometimes use conservation or environment as a segue into animal welfare. So with that, we talk about advocacy. Advocacy basically means not activism, but really the other end of the spectrum of discussing, communicating, negotiating, understanding what the other side needs to succeed. And then there are many steps and processes. So this is just one example of how people have designed and understood what advocacy means. The information, how to build the position, how to talk to people, how to present information, and how to negotiate. And then we're going to go into the United Nations. What is it? It is this giant word, and it has like hundreds of organizations underneath it. Here are some of their logos, and some of them I didn't realize. So I didn't realize that the International Monetary Fund is part of the UN. So there's lots of things out there that you don't realize but are. What does the UN do? So they have one singular goal at the moment that all agencies under the United Nations must address, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. These plans are for 15 years, much too long, but they try to address these things that are affecting the world. So everything from hunger, poverty, education, gender, the environment, here, climate, and all these things that people need. So there are 17 goals. There are also indicators, and there's some metrics behind here. So nations can actually report against this, and in fact, they have to report against it about every 5 years. So now we know about the United Nations, what they try to do. Regionally, interestingly enough, Asia Pacific is a region. Southeast Asia is a region. They participate through SCAP, and they also participate through ASEAN. So both of these organizations really talk about trade, and that's where it impacts animals. And we can have these discussions about human development and trade. Here is the 6 bodies or organs and everything from these systems. Some of these you might hear in the news, but what we really generally deal with is this component here and this component here. So it's called ECOSOC and the General Assembly. Those are the 2 groups that actually might have an impact on animal welfare because they deal with either trade or international sort of the heads of state can lead and say that animal welfare is important. Once again, this is their system, and it's an explanation of the complexity of the United Nations. You saw the 6 bodies. This is 6 bodies, and then broken down. Everything that you guys work on, CITES, CBD, Convention on Biodiversity, the climate summit, all of those, it falls somewhere into this madness. And it's a little microcosm amongst a very big system. But we're all just trying to make gains for animals and animal welfare. Logic model. What is it? This is what we think the theory of change is. The problem is the international agenda does not include animal welfare sufficiently as a policy lens. That means they don't consider animals. What we want to see is a world where humans treat animals with respect, empathy, and understanding. I think we can all kind of agree with that. But it starts at a member state level, which means it's the national level. That's our target group. Why? Because they have the votes. They vote on whether laws are passed or policies are passed. We influence the national body. Then they make policies nationally about animal welfare. And then they can take it in to the regional and the international fora and advocate for animals because they want things to be aligned. That's how we think this is supposed to work. And currently, many groups are working on these major topics with the United Nations, from climate to the pandemics, or pandemic treaty that's happening now. Wildlife and trade really is CITES. Food systems is Food Systems Summit, and all of these groups here. Biodiversity is regulated under a convention called the Convention on Biodiversity. Animals and disasters is protected in certain classes under the United Nations Office of Disaster Risk Management. The environment is under UNEP, which is currently considering a animal welfare, environment, and sustainable development nexus report. And under DESA, we try to make an argument, a really strong one, that animal welfare is tied to every single sustainable development goal and is integral to human development. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ngoc. She's going to come up and talk about how can you participate on a national, regional, and a global scale. Give her a hand.
Thank you, Jackson, for the wonderful presentations. And this leads to another question of how organizations can engage and participate in these processes, and what is the big pictures. And these can be summarized in the following points. First is to engage in dialogues with their national authorities. Second is to participate in the regionals and international working groups. Number 3 would be to encourage better visibilities for underrepresented groups and individuals. And last but not least, keeping updates on news and articles and participate in capacity building workshops. Let's get to the first point, and I'm sure that many of you here are somewhat familiar with the works of the AfA Animals Coalitions. Now, together with our network member organizations, we co-authors and send appeal letters whenever there's an issue raised. And in order for appeal letters to be processed quickly and effectively, we need to reach the correct people. And to do so, we would like to suggest that our members build stronger relationships with their national governments so that we can ensure that what we are doing is reaching the correct people. And at the AfA Policy Coalitions, we work hard on relationship buildings, but we also understand and believe that you know the situations of your countries best. And I would like to present to you some ideas on how to get involved in animal protection policy advocacy. First is to participate in events where there are opportunities to engage with government officials or people who have working relationships with them. And through them, over time, we can build connections and gain a much better insight into the local policy arena. An example could be the events the events held by the One Health University Network in your own countries, where you can look to build connections with officials at the Ministry of Health. Or you can organize events yourself in collaborations with other organizations in your regions. Now, this will ensure that your voice can be amplified, and invites to your events could be sent to the relevant government agencies in your countries. Also, you can request assistance for contacts from the national networks of organizations at your own countries, or the regional networks such as the AfA for Animals Coalitions. This means that at AfA we can help spread the words about your initiative at your own countries, and also facilitate discussion between your organizations and the others in the regions who might have contacts. And just like I think that many of us here already heard the keynote speech very beautifully given by Dr. Jill Robinson. It might sound simple, but being polite and friendly definitely goes a long way. The animal protection movement can at times be seen as against governments. However, being personable and forming positive relationships will always get you further than negativity. And I don't personally believe in a one-size-fits-all approach. The most important things to always keep in mind is to consider language and cultural practices when engaging in dialogues with the government. And you can ask for tips and experiences from the people who have already worked on the issues before. And AFAs, that's the very reasons why AfA exists, and we're here to help connect you. Let's move on to the second sections, and this is my favorite. AfA has always stressed the need to work together instead of working in silos, as an united voice is definitely stronger than a single voice. And I am a believer in that philosophy. With that said, I would like to stress that coalitions like AfA do not exist to add more to your already very busy schedules. We are here to support you, and together we can brainstorm with our collective minds to build multiple perspectives and form different opinions. So with that said, what are the current methods of operations of the different working groups? As you can see here, together with working groups, we can discuss the theory of change and strategies. We can share resources and expertise. We can jointly write position papers, policy briefs, reports, and together as a group, we share opinions on the text, we share resources for reference, among others, and we organize meaningful events for capacity buildings. And we have, most importantly, we help one another access important UN events, especially for those without accreditations. There's many more ways for collective work in animal policy advocacy, but these are the basics. And if you're interested in participate in the different working groups, you can see from this slide here that there are so many out there that you can be a part of. And if you would like to engage more on the global policy advocacy work, which is building the big pictures aside from your regional work, you can check out the group chaired by the World Federations for Animals, such as the United Nations Environment Assembly Working Group focusing on the Nexus resolutions, recognizing the interconnectedness between humans, animals, and the environment, adopted in 2022. They also have the diverse biodiversity working groups, the UNFCCC working groups, which mainly deals with the issues of climate change at the UN Framework Conventions on Climate Change. And there's also the Pandemic Treaty Working Group chaired by Paws International as well, which mainly deals with the promotions of the One Health approach and the negotiation process of the upcoming pandemic treaty by the quadripartite organizations. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the term quadripartite, but when I first start this job, whenever I hear that that word, I'm freaking out. And sometimes it's really hard for me to 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 remember how many organizations are in that groups. So there's World Health Organizations, Food and Agriculture Organizations, United Nations Environment Programme, the World Organization for Animal Health, and I would like to go into details on the different working groups here, but keeping respect with the time constraint, I would have to move on to another slide. And other groups that may be of interest to you could be the Stop Factory Farming Financing, or S3F, which focus on financing and divestment issues around the world at the development banks and also the World Bank. And also, you might want to check out the One Health University Network in your own countries, which focus on, like I said, on the promotions of One Health and engagement of the Ministry of Health officials. Yeah, and tentatively, we would like to also engage NGO partnership platforms focusing on monitoring and collaborations to work on the Sustainable Development Goals, which Dr. Jackson Z just commented on. And there has been a lack of engagement between these platforms and animal protection organizations, partly due to the lack of sufficient representations of animal welfare and interests at the Sustainable Development Goals. And these platforms have strong connections with their own respective governments and also have accreditations with the regional UN bodies like UNESCAP and also the global UN bodies like ECOSOC and UNEP. So basically, engaging with them, it will be an avenue for us to create a global, to advocate for better representations of our cause at the regional levels, which will then translate to a global impact. And some of the platforms I've already demonstrated here is ABSD, RBSM, and ADA, among others. And gaining accreditations to different UN bodies is extremely beneficial. It will allow you to actually participate in the discussions, engage with stakeholders directly, receive news, and let your own voices be heard. And most importantly is to raise our collective voice as an animal protection groups, especially for the region of Asia, which is currently very underrepresented at many of the UN processes. And these are some of the relevant UN bodies where you can ask for reference, where you can check out to see if you are eligible for accreditations to participate in the process. And last but not least, we'll go to how to keep updates on news and participate in capacity building workshops. And you can join different Slack channels of groups you are a part of. You can join the regional webinars or in-person events. You can subscribe to the mailing list directly from the UN, especially UNESCAP and others like the FAS or the mailing list from the Species Survival Networks. You can join our webinars and podcast series at AfA. I don't know if you have heard, but we also have the APC Policy Clinic. And we have, most importantly, there are reference platforms out there like the International Network of Governmental Science Advice, which aims to improve the connections between science and policy making, between scientists and also government officials. Yeah, so this is the platform, the website of INSA, which you can check out if you're interested. Yeah. As the last remark, I would like everyone to take a moment to reflect on the problems that you are facing, the most difficult problem you're facing in your everyday work. And I would hazard a guess that one of those could be a lack of collaborations or an united front. And that is why AfA is here, and we can help support and connect you. And thank you for listening, and thank you, Jackson, for these wonderful opportunities.
Fantastic. Let's give her a hand. Yay! Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. There was a lot of information there. Just as a quick plug, if you want to know more and you want to get a better understanding of this, go to the AfA Policy website, sign on, get the email, and we'll send you information. Join the Slack team. So it's another app, but we communicate regularly on there, and we share information. And that's all taken care of by Nakan, so expect to hear from her.
Thank you, Jackson. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via the email here.
Questions? Any questions? All right. Thank you, everyone.